Welcome back, guys. I'm sorry you didn't hear from me for about a week or so. I was out of the country. Hopefully most of you saw the note I left on the channel. Anyway, I'm back now and I've got a great video for you today, so let's get into it. So there's this quote that's always going around on X. I see it all the time and it makes me laugh every time I see it because it's just so true. And what the quote says is, "It's amazing how much left-wing discourse is just them pretending not to understand things, thus making discourse impossible." Right? It just sums up the entire ideology, and it's the most true thing I've ever seen. Anyway, maybe you've seen it, but the left-wing voice, YouTuber, streamer, whatever he is, the guy who goes by the name of Destiny, sat down for a debate with Konstantin Kisin. This was just a few days ago, I believe, and the debate is just pure gold because this clown Destiny thinks he's controlling the debate, thinks he's winning the arguments, but he's really just proving the point from that Twitter quote. And Konstantin walks all over Destiny in every angle of the debate. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to show you one of my favorite clips from that. And yeah, let's talk about it.
What type of immigrant would threaten that whatever unified identity, whatever those two things are? So I'm kind of curious, I guess, when I think about national identity, when I think about it being threatened by people, my first question is, what is the national identity that we're trying to protect for the United States or for the United Kingdom? And then when we talk about like migration or mass migration, what do we mean exactly when we say that?
Well, okay. So there's two questions there. What is national identity and what is immigration? Why don't we start in reverse and talk about immigration? Take Britain as an example, right? So I've lived in this country. I came to Britain from, it was just about Russia. Prior to that, it was the Soviet Union in 1996. So let's go back to 1991 because that's the data when we have the census. 1991. What has happened in the last 35 years? So in the last 35 years ago, this country had a population of 58 million people. Today, the population is 70 million. Almost all of that is due to mass immigration. So the population of Britain, the immigrant population of Britain, that's first generation, people who've arrived, went from 4 million to 12 million in the space of 35 years, right? It trebled in 35 years. Now, you might say, well, you know, is that a lot? Is that a little? Who knows? That is more people, in the last 35 years, more people came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia. So more people in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years. Now, that seems like quite a lot, right? Now, we'll talk about some more facts about this, and then we can talk about national identity. I'm going to take a little time, if you don't mind, just to lay this out.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of poke around as you answer.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me just let's talk about what we mean by immigration, right?
Okay. Well, then also the mass, because I hear a lot of these words will be like, it was a lot of people.
Well, hold on.
I was like, what does that mean?
You're going to notice a common theme, a common tactic from this guy Destiny here, right? And that is how he will take any opportunity he can to try to derail the conversation. That's what he does. That's his kind of defense mechanism, especially when he knows he's outclassed in a debate, which he is in this instance. But anyway, whenever the opposite side is trying to explain their position, Destiny will do anything he can to avoid contending with the logic. He will jump in, he will interrupt, just so we can slip in a bunch of words and make it seem like he actually knows what he's talking about, but really he's just running from the argument.
Yeah.
I'm explaining it. So
okay.
More people in 35 years than 2,000 years, that sounds like quite a lot of people. Is
not
that fair?
Necessarily, no.
Is that fair?
No, not really, right? In the context,
really.
like if I were to ask for like the total growth of wealth compared to like the last like 50 years might also dwarf the last 2,000 years, or the total amount of carbon pollution, or the total amount of TV episodes or plays written or songs written. Like I don't know if I would just arbitrarily say, I'm going to look at immigration and I'm going to measure it past some 1,000-year thing or whatever.
You don't think that more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in the previous 2,000 years is quite a lot?
I just think that that statement is like vacuous and meaningless. When we say quite a lot, what, like, should it have been less?
Look at the difference between the two facial expressions on these guys. Destiny has his same usual smug, arrogant look with his like annoying, buzzing body movements, like he can't sit still like a child. And Konstantin's just looking at him like, are you serious right now, bro? Like, are we really doing this? Anyway, let's keep going.
Like, what kind of immigrants shouldn't have come? No. What does that mean?
You're making it into a moral conversation. I'm talking about purely numbers. You might think it's a great thing, right? Like,
well, to be clear, I'm not talking. Just to be clear, I'm not talking moral.
You keep interrupting.
You say it a lot, yeah.
You keep interrupting. So,
okay.
If we're talking about quite a lot, you keep trying to make it a moral thing.
I'm not making it a moral thing.
If we're gonna have a conversation, you're gonna have to let me finish a sentence at least.
Well, just don't misquote my position.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just calm down for a bit.
I'm super calm.
I know you've got your Red Bull. Just have
I
some
have my
water,
Red Bull.
chill
I'm
out.
still super calm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very
Now,
simple question. Yeah.
If more people, if you're making a moral issue, it becomes very clouded and complicated. Let's just talk about what we're talking about in terms of pure numbers, right? If more people have come into a country in 35 years than have come in 2,000 years, that is objectively a lot. Now, you might think it's a good thing. Like, I like ice cream, and if I eat a tub of ice cream, I'm not going to say that's not a lot of ice cream. I still like it, but it's a lot of ice cream, right? We'd accept that. It's more, a scoop is not a lot of ice cream, a tub is a lot of ice cream.
Konstantin has been around the block. He's debated guys like Destiny on numerous occasions. He knows the tactics of the left, and he knows, going back to the Twitter quote I was talking about earlier, he knows Destiny is about to pretend he doesn't understand the meaning of basic words. So Konstantin is ahead of that, and he spells it out for him in a way you would explain it to your child, because that's what you have to do if you have any hope of actually getting through to these people.
So more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years is objectively a lot of people, okay?
Just to be clear, when you say a lot, that's a normative value that's with respect to some kind of norm or mean. When you say a lot...
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
compared to before.
Yeah, he's seriously going to debate him now on the meaning of a lot. He's like, oh, well, it depends what you mean by a lot. Like, what do you mean by a lot? Like, seriously, that's what I was saying earlier. He's just trying to derail the conversation. Like, bro, you know what a lot means. Like, come on, get on with it.
Yeah,
Compared
that's
to the entire
objectively,
span
yeah,
of the
that is
history of this
objectively true. It's just kind of a meaningless
thank
statement.
you.
Like
So you've
everything is
accepted-
a lot
you've
more
accepted
than the
that what
past
I'm saying is
2 millennia.
objectively
Yeah.
true. I'm grateful.
Correct, yes. That's
So-
a meaningless statement, but yes.
Now that we've got there, what does it mean? Well, first of all, think about it like this. And again, it's not about whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a good thing or not, or a bad thing. The three biggest cities in this country in the last 30 years have ceased to be majority inhabited by the people who are native to this land. That's just a fact. And I am one of the people who's come here in that time. So I'm not saying it's only a terrible thing, but it's an objective fact. The three biggest cities in the country are now majority minority. London, and this has happened very quickly. London was 80% white British in 1991. It is probably around 30% white British today. So if you have seen that level of change in the city in which you live, think about this as well. 3/4 of the people who live in this country today are over the age of 35. So all of this has happened within the lifetime of one generation, effectively. That is a level of change that is A, completely unprecedented, B, extremely transformative, whether you like it or not, good or bad, whatever you may think. You might think, oh, you know, the amount of different kinds of food has got better. It's true, objectively. But it's also true, objectively, that entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here. Again, this is an objective fact. You can like it, you can dislike it, but that is something that has happened. This is true of London, it's true of Manchester, it's true of Birmingham, and it's true of several other smaller cities in this country. By 2060, according to current projections, white British people will become a minority in this country. 2060 is the next 35 years, right? And that's the entire kind of demographic transformation. These are facts. Forget about people's opinions, my opinion, your opinion. In terms of illegal immigration, there are now almost 1 million. We don't know exactly because it's hard to measure, but we have almost 1 million illegal immigrants in Britain today, which for a population of 70 million is quite a lot. And we currently spend £14 million a day spend. I'm not talking about the cost to the taxpayer of having 1 million illegal immigrants here. I'm talking about how much we spend to accommodate them and all other things.
That £40 million a day figure is insane, because if you've ever been to Britain outside of London and maybe the nice part of a couple cities, it's like driving on the surface of the moon. There are potholes everywhere. Everything looks like shit. £40 million a day? I feel like one day's worth of £40 million could fix a lot of, if not all of the problems in this country. But no, it goes to what? Goes to what?
Now, 14 million, is that a lot per day? It's quite a lot. But also this is happening at an unprecedented rate. More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996. I'll say that again. More people come here illegally every year than came here in 1996 when I came here. That's the level of change when it comes to illegal immigration. And The cost of it, £14 million a day, is increased by a factor of 10 in the last 10 years alone. So it's 1,000% more than what it was. Those are the facts about immigration. So when we talk about immigration and whether it's compatible with national identity, it depends what we mean. If we're talking about, 20, 30, 40,000 people a year, highly selective from compatible cultures as it used to be, perfectly compatible, and in fact, I think probably quite desirable. If we're talking about what we've seen over the last 30 years, I don't think it's compatible with any sort of national identity at all. Now, I've been talking for a long time, so we can get to national identity after you've addressed that.
Sure. So I guess the thing that is a little bit strange to me about the immigration question is that sometimes I'll hear a bunch of descriptions laid out, and I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with them. There's oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like. And then it feels like we're sometimes also lumping a ton of immigrants together. So for instance, when we say there have been so many more immigrants that have come here in the past 30, 35 years, but then we also mention like illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, these are all different groups of...
He's already grasping at straws here, or at least demonstrating that he wasn't listening to anything, because Konstantin did separate the categories. He laid it out perfectly, and I think he made his stance very clear that it's nothing to do with whether you're an ideal immigrant or not. The facts are the costs are unbearable, the costs are unrealistic, and the overall effect on society is not exactly favorable. Konstantin didn't say anything about what Destiny is now bringing up. He's just using that typical, standard left-wing talking point that they just throw at every situation, although it doesn't actually address any real issues.
People. So I don't know why.
I separated them out. I talked about legal immigration and illegal immigration, right?
I understand, but so the prompt has to do with basically can a country's culture, whatever, survive mass migration? Illegal immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration.
They are. So I just told you more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
I understand that, but if you look at
they are mass migrating.
So then are the legal ones mass migrating, or what? Is it just...
Do you guys see what I mean here? Like, this guy can't be serious. Does he not think mass migration can include legal immigrants? It's just immigration as a whole. If it happens in high numbers, that's mass migration, whether it's illegal or legal. Like, what an idiot.
The legal immigrants are also mass migrating. It's possible for them both to be mass migrating.
But it's like 10 to 1, right? So
yes.
So comparing the two, it seems like we're talking about different kinds of... We're probably talking about different kinds of immigrants. We talk about legal versus illegal.
We're talking about both, yeah.
Well, no.
I'm talking about both.
You don't see any difference between a legal immigrant versus an illegal immigrant?
Well, of course I do.
Okay.
But they are both mass migrating here. They're both coming here in unprecedented numbers.
You'll never guess what Destiny is about to do here again.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented as you move forward in years. We have an unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of...
I think you might be confused about the meaning of the word unprecedented.
Unprecedented as in it hasn't happened at that level before. Yeah.
Right. So if we have immigration of 20,000 people a year, that wouldn't be unprecedented because we had that before.
Yeah, but the population is growing of the country, the population of the rest of the planet is growing, the economy is growing, there's a whole bunch of other factors at play. It's not like all else equal, there's just 10 million people that have shown up. Like there's other factors at play at all points in time as well. So yes, it's a bit reductive to say like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
No, that's not true.
And what's the thing that's been frozen in time?
I just explained it to you.
Yes, you laid out a bunch of numbers, and I just explained why they're contextless and meaningless. But now I'm asking, what is the thing that's unprecedented?
Look,
or I'm sorry, what would be a thing that is not changing in the past 30 years? Like if you had to look at something.
One of the most amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean.
Hey, that's awesome. I don't know if Konstantin has seen the quote on Twitter or if he's just paraphrasing it in his own way, but... Exactly. That's exactly what Destiny is doing, and I'm glad he exposed him for it in front of that live audience.
I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before. There have been times in the history of this country when its immigration was in the tens of thousands, and for us to go back to that would not be going forward to something unprecedented. It would be returning to something that we used to do.
Sure.
Right?
And my question
so what has happened in the last 30 years is unprecedented.
Is there anything in U.S. culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years? that it doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It is what is preserved over time.
How?
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
But what is an example of a culture that is unchanging?
How much have you traveled around the world?
Probably more than you?
Probably not, actually.
Okay. So then you should be able to very easily answer. Here's an example of a culture that exists.
Every time I try and answer your question, you keep talking over me.
Well, it's because when you answer, you ramble and say irrelevant things. So my question is
how can I ramble in half a sentence?
Let's just get this one thing clear right now. Konstantin is not the one who rambles on. When Konstantin makes his arguments, he speaks very slowly, very clearly and concisely, and he says just the right amount of words needed to prove his point. Destiny, on the other hand, is the one who speaks like a machine gun, gets a million words out in 5 seconds, especially when he's interrupting someone. And yeah, it's just his tactic. It's so ridiculous that he's accusing Konstantin of doing that.
You've been saying plenty of sentences. Do you think the speaking time up to this point is even, or do you think you've spoken more than me?
I have spoken more than you, but I haven't interrupted you.
So then you had an opportunity to speak. You're just not answering my question. So my question is very simple. What's a culture that you feel has been unchanged for the past 50 years? Or what is an example of cultural preservation? I feel like cultures are evolving all the time. It's definitionally a part of culture.
Of course. Cultures are evolving all the time. But if you were to be plonked in 1970s Afghanistan and 1990s Afghanistan and 2010s Afghanistan and 1950s Britain, 1970s Britain and 2010s Britain, there would be common themes that run through both of those places so that you would instantly recognize, I am in Afghanistan, I am in Britain. Would you accept that?
I agree that different cultures are different, yes.
Right, well done. Good. So we've got there then.
Oh my God, the sarcasm used by these guys. You'll notice that too. Whenever they're up against a wall, they just use sarcasm and they think that's how you win a debate. He'll also constantly, throughout this debate, accuse Konstantin of not answering his questions. Though, in my opinion, and probably yours too, Konstantin always thoroughly answers a question to the fullest of his capability and generally always makes the point. But Destiny will just go on saying, no, he still never answered it, even though he perfectly answers it.
Well, you just established that there are. This is like saying
different cultures are different, which means that they have something about them.
Yes, and
that makes them different.
If you have a brother, both of you will be different for your entire lives. But
there would be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you
would
would grow and change, right?
Of course.
So when you talk about
but you're still the
preserving
same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No. Are you the same as you were 10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that? The same. You're not unchanged, right?
Are you pretending to be a moron or are you actually being one?
What a legend. You hear the little chuckle from the audience too. They get it. Anyway, that was a major slam dunk and you could tell it cut deep for Destiny there. So then he moves on to another common tactic by the left, which is basically putting words in the other side's mouth and making it out like they've said something they never actually said. I see this all the time in left-wing discourse.
So your claim was that we need to preserve culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
Okay, then help me understand. So
I will.
Because if you don't remember,
me.
this whole topic started with, I'm curious, what is a thing that is precedented? What's the thing that happens continuously through all of history that isn't changing? And then you pointed to the fact that Afghanistan and the United Kingdom are different cultures. Like, that's something that I would reject.
No, I didn't. I was just explaining to you what cultures are, which are the cultural differences between groups of people that remain fairly constant over time, despite changing somewhat, as all cultures do.
Your definition of culture is the difference between your culture and another culture?
No, I gave you my definition.
You just said. You said it was the differences between cultures that change over time that define one culture against another one.
Okay, let's reset. And you talk for a bit, and then I talk for a bit, and then you talk for a bit.
Well, no, because I noticed that this is how it feels like a lot of these types of people, the centrists, the reformers, the MAGA, whatever, is you paint with such broad brushstrokes that by the end of a sentence, I feel like you haven't really said much at all. And I'm just kind of curious why, when you guys speak about things like the preservation of culture, I don't really hear you allude to anything concrete. Or when you talk about wanting to preserve something, you talk about how something has changed. I don't necessarily hear, like, what are the things that are changing that you don't like. You'll point to things like crimes, but I mean, like, crimes are illegal. Obviously, they shouldn't be happening. I just don't really hear anything concrete ever, and it's very unsatisfying to listen to a bunch of people kind of ramble on and on and on without ever having a clear point about what they're talking about. So
he makes that accusation there, and I've heard that same accusation made by lefties who are, up against the wall in debates on numerous occasions in the past. But it's just a false accusation altogether. Konstantin didn't do that. He made very clear arguments. He gave examples. He gave stats, statistics. He gave real world examples as to how, you know, this situation could turn into a negative situation for everyone. And, you know, he did it with the precision of a scalpel. Now, I think when Destiny makes an accusation like that, he does so for his lefty audience who are too dense to understand what was said. And, you know, he makes it sound like it might have been a sick burn or whatever. But, you know, anyone who's got half a brain will see right through it and be like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Like, that's just not true.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out, for British or American culture, what are these things that you feel are common, maybe you go back 30, 40, 50 years, that were common across the whole country that you feel are changing in a way that they never changed in the past?
Get ready for it, because Konstantin's about to annihilate him here. I don't think Destiny really thought about what he was asking.
Okay, done?
Are you going to answer that question? He's not going to answer the question. Go ahead.
I've attempted to answer your question many times, and I'll do so again. However, first of all, am I going to be okay to speak now for a bit? Is that going to happen?
Sure. Can you repeat my question first so I know what you're...
Your question is about what is culture. You brought up crime.
That wasn't my question. My question is, over the past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay. One of the things that has changed in Britain over the last 30 years is we now have an extensive number of Islamist terrorist attacks, mass stabbings, mass rape of British girls by Islamist and Muslim grooming gangs. This is not something that happened in this culture before.
Okay, so... Sexual assault and rape did happen before in
Did you hear the
culture,
words
right?
I said, or did
so
you
you said grooming gangs. I know there's the example from the 80s and 90s with the Rotherham
they're not from the 80s
gangs.
and 90s. They're happening right now.
What is another grooming gang example? Because I know there are rapes and stuff that happen, but I don't think there are...
Yeah, well, let me explain it to you. So grooming gangs, this is a euphemism that we use to pretend that they're not what they are mass rape gangs where young British girls, usually underage, but also often sometimes young women, would be plied with drugs, plied with alcohol, would be taken from the care homes where they were, predominantly by Pakistani, sometimes other Indian subcontinent Muslims. They would be targeted primarily because they were white and British, so these were racially aggravated hate crimes. And they would be mass raped over periods of years sometimes. That did not used to happen in Britain.
So
that is a cultural change. Can I finish what I'm saying, please?
Okay, you're not going to answer my question. Okay.
Like, what do you mean, man? You asked him to give an example, and he gave you multiple examples. What? Oh, I hate this guy, honestly.
I am answering a question.
Well, but my question was, what are examples? I don't think this has happened outside of the Rotherham grooming gang, that whole scandal. There have been rapes, there have been gang rapes, but the idea of like a coordinated grooming gang type mass Pakistani targeting British girls rapes, that type of thing is not a thing that I'm aware has been seen in Britain outside of the large Rotherham scandal.
So, this just shows how unequipped Destiny is for this debate, because it is a major thing outside of Rotherham. It's happening all over the country. And, you know, he thought this was happening back in the 80s, man. Like, how... Oh, my God. Like, how do you not know this story? Elon Musk made this a major worldwide headline. And I think the problem with the left is they don't tap into any right-wing discourse or even any centrist discourse. I think it's a major problem to only consume content and only listen to speakers from, you know, the left wing. You're just going to end up in an echo chamber. I think it's very healthy for everyone to consume discourse from either side of the political spectrum. And if you're not doing that, it's wildly irresponsible. That's what I think. It is extremely irresponsible, because you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're certainly not doing the world any favors, because if you don't have it from both sides, you can't form a proper opinion. That's all.
Well, I don't know. I think the fact that somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million British girls might have been raped by these gangs is quite a big deal, and it represents a change in the culture of this country that I think is quite unwelcome.
I never said it wasn't a big deal. I think rape is bad. I just think it's bad when white people do it too. I think it's bad when everybody does it. My understanding is right now for the crime stats in the United Kingdom, it tends to be more white people are even overrepresented in terms of sexual assault and rape.
I see this on Twitter, on X, all the time, where lefties refuse to acknowledge or act like they just don't understand how per capita works. But also, I've said this in another video, yeah, every country has some freaks, man. Why do you want to import more if it's already a problem? Like, yeah, every single country is like that. It's not a valid argument, and it's a bad faith argument.
But I'm aware that there are immigrants that rape people as well. I think all rape is bad, but the idea that there is a mass Islamist, jihadist, rape gang-centered thing in the United Kingdom that's functioning,
So
I think
how many girls would have to be raped for you to admit that it's a mass thing?
Konstantin has got Destiny completely cornered right now in a trap that Destiny set up for himself without even knowing. He brought it up. He asked the question. Konstantin just gave the example. And we're now about to see Destiny refuse to answer the question, something that he has accused Konstantin of doing falsely multiple times throughout this video. And then he's going to jump to sarcasm as a tactic on the topic of the mass rape of little girls. Like, wow.
the question isn't if it's a mass
Well,
thing. The question is if it's organized. You have a huge problem with definitions. I'm sorry, let me try to keep this tight. You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen,
rape is bad, but organized grooming gang
You've asked me a lot of questions, and every time I answer them, you ignore my answer.
At all, but
now answer my question.
Yeah.
Answer my question. If 500,000 girls have been mass raped in this way, specifically being targeted because they were not of a particular religion or ethnicity, how many of them would have to be treated in this way for you to admit that it's a mass thing? What's the number that makes a mass? Answer my question.
Wasn't. I don't know. I don't know how you would identify
Give
a
us
mass
a number.
thing.
Give us a number.
The question was organized.
Give us a number. You said
500,001. So you're right. You're right beneath the threshold. Maybe tomorrow you'll have it.
It's actually.
So the question is there
actually
organized?
Between 500,000 and a million.
Okay. I'll ramble for a second, and then you can ramble after.
So you agree that it's
mass. My issue is because you do this thing over and over again where you won't accurately identify a problem. You'll invent these things because rape isn't bad enough. Now it has to be like a mass grooming gang rape thing. And then what happens is you conservatives, you play this game where you falsely identify a problem, you lie to the audience about it, and then you manage to gain power. You go through with some wacky scheme. Go figure, the wacky scheme doesn't fix anything, and then somehow you come back with the same recycled narratives over and over again asking for another shot at it. It's happening right now with Farage and reform. It happened with Brexit. Brexit didn't reduce immigration. It didn't help you with your economy. It didn't do anything really good for the United Kingdom at all. And then it's happening now with reform coming in and making all of these promises to the British people that you're going to be able to cut all of the revenues coming in. You're going to be able to increase all of your funding. You're going to have a no-wait NHS. And it's all built on the same lies over and over again that didn't help you affect any positive outcomes in the past, and it's not going to help you affect any positive outcomes in the future.
Everything he's just spelled out there is true, but in the reverse. It's the left that have allowed for all of those things to happen, basically in the exact same order. Like, yeah, Brexit didn't work. Why is that? Because we have a far left government in power basically ever since then. Oh my God. And the things he's saying about lying to your audience, that's what the left do. Konstantin doesn't lie to the audience. He didn't invent the rape gang scandal. That happened organically. He's just commentating on it. Like, what is this guy even talking about? He's such a mess. Like, I've never seen someone get so destroyed, a lot of it by themselves in their own debates. Ridiculous.
You can sit here and you can be upset about it, but I watched you and Matt Goodwin debate on stage where you guys both made the bold prediction that once the Tories were out, your immigration numbers would be over 1 million per year. They plummeted to 300,000. I haven't heard you say anything about that. Your predictions were completely wrong, just as they were with Brexit as well.
Well, that was a wonderful presentation. The problem for you is I voted Remain in the referendum.
Because you hadn't been bullied by the Cambridge students yet. I'm aware of the history, but I know.
So... you've come here with a bunch of talking points. That's great.
Hold on. We can break down anything you want.
Stop interrupting.
Don't accuse me of having talking points.
Stop interrupting. Stop interrupting.
Then address what I said.
Stop interrupting.
Address what I said.
Stop interrupting.
Address what I've said.
Stop interrupting.
I believe in you.
Stop interrupting. I let you talk, and I let you make your points. Have some respect for me and for my opportunity to express myself as well. That is how a debate is conducted. So stop interrupting. We started this with a conversation about mass immigration, and I gave you the facts on it, and I defined what immigration is, right? Mass immigration. Now, you're talking about culture. I also explained to you what culture is, and I explained it to you by explaining that it's a continuity of certain things, which may also evolve over time. Now, in terms of your point about mass immigration since Brexit, I was not a supporter of Brexit. I didn't think it was necessarily a good idea. And I agree with you that it hasn't reduced immigration. But I don't see how that's relevant to this conversation. We have had mass immigration happen in this country continually over a long period of time, which has changed the country in the way that I gave you. And I gave you a number of examples, like Islamist terrorism, like grooming gangs, and other things, which I don't think you're able to address because they counteract the argument that you keep making, which is, well, nothing changes when you bring in 8 million people over 30 years.
Did I say that?
Can I finish, please?
Did I say that?
Can
Why do you
I
have to
finish?
invent
Can I
points?
finish, please?
You just can't address anything.
Can I
say?
finish, please? If I
Pretend it's
interrupted
a
you,
podcast
if I
episode. Go ahead.
interrupted you every
Make up
time you
positions for me.
misrepresent my
Go for
argument,
it.
you'd never talk at
Go
all.
for it. Okay.
So can I finish, please? You made the point that basically what I'm trying to say is, not trying to say, what I'm saying is, when you bring in large numbers of people into a country from a different culture, that will necessarily change the culture. The other thing that I explained to you is there's been such a large wave of immigration into this country now that has fundamentally changed the sense of British people about the place in which they live. It is affecting the demographic dynamics of major cities in this country and the way people feel about that. But all of those things, the facts that I gave you about immigration, they are what they are. You can think that they're good, you can think that they're bad. That is a separate conversation. The facts are what they are, right? There's also a thing about how British people feel about it. When I came to this country in 1996, 3% of the British public thought that immigration was a major concern. Today, about 65 to 70% of British people say that there are too many immigrants in this country and too many immigrants coming here. Now, I think British people probably have a better idea of how they feel about immigration than you, Stephen, and that is how they feel.
Why do you think over half the British population believes that the majority of the immigrants here today are here illegally, if they've got such a great handle on it or a great idea about what immigration is doing to the country?
The reason that people overestimate immigration is people generally, when asked about things, overestimate pretty much everything or underestimate things terribly because people are not very good with numbers. But the other reason, of course, people aren't able to quote you the exact number of people who
I didn't ask for a quote of the exact number.
You said this earlier, and I'm addressing your broader point, which is why do people misunderstand the immigration statistics, is that people don't look at immigration as this is the number of people who came this year and this is the number of people who came last year. They look at the reality of their lives, they look at the change they see around them, and what they're really concerned about is the cumulative impact of immigration over the period of their lifetime, which, as I explained to you, has been huge, unprecedented over the last 35 years, and will be even more unprecedented in terms of its cumulative impact over the next 35 years. Now, it's true that immigration has come down to 300 or something thousand in the last year. Doesn't mean it will stay that way, but also I never predicted it would get to 1 million. I think Matt did. But the point I would make is the transformation over a 30-year period is what people actually care about, and which is what they're right to care about. Now, as for the point about illegal immigration, yeah, it's true. Illegal immigration is a smaller percentage of the total immigration that we have than legal immigration, but it's still higher today than it was 35 years ago and 30 years ago, which is way too high. Illegal immigration should be zero.
Beautifully summarized by Konstantin there. If you guys don't know who Konstantin is, he has his own podcast called Trigonometry. If you've never seen that, go check it out because it's a brilliant show. He's such an eloquent speaker. He's fantastic. He's great to learn from, especially if you're into the whole debate scene. He's got amazing debate skills, and you can learn a thing or two from this guy. If you've not seen that full debate between the two of them, it goes on for a lot longer than that. This was just the one topic. They discuss several topics, and on each one, you will find that Konstantin destroys destiny just as much as he did on this topic there. Anyway, I know this was a long one. I figured you guys deserved it since I was away for so long. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Follow me over on X at LJGraySDTL, and I will see you all in the next one. See ya.